The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest room ever built. It stretched for miles in every direction. It's filled with floating platforms where representatives from 2,000 species gathered to decide the fate of the galaxy. Light from a captured star filtered through crystal walls, casting rainbows across beings of every shape and size. Some were made of fire. Others were clouds of gas. A few were so strange that looking at them hurt the eyes. On this day, every seat was filled. Every eye, every sensor, every form of attention was focused on a single platform near the center. On it stood two humans. They looked small against the vastness of the hall, fragile, weak. Park Do-won was 67 years old. His hair had turned white long ago, and his hands shook slightly when he was tired. He had served as humanity's ambassador for 30 years. He had solved wars, ended plagues, and built bridges between species that had hated each other for millennia. He was respected. He was trusted. Today, he would betray that trust in the only way that mattered. Beside him stood Yoon-hana, his assistant. She was young, barely 30, with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. She spoke 340 galactic languages fluently. She had translated peace treaties and declarations of war, but she had never translated anything like what was about to happen. The High Arbiter Velos floated at the head of the council. He was a being of living crystal, 7 meters tall, his body catching the light and splitting it into 1,000 colors. He had led the Confederation for 2 centuries. He was wise. He was fair. He was about to lose everything, Ambassador Park Velos said, his voice ringing like bells through the translator systems. You requested this session with unusual urgency. The Council recognizes humanity. You may speak. Park Do-won bowed. It was a human gesture, but one the galaxy had learned to recognize as respect. Then he straightened and looked out at the assembled species. He looked at the Vec, whose empire humanity had saved from civil war. He looked at the Prism Collective, whose communication networks humanity had built. He looked at the Whisper Archivists, whose libraries humanity had protected for 500 years. He looked at all of them, and he felt nothing but sorrow. We'll be brief, he said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. Humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Confederation. All human personnel, technology, and aid will be recalled within 1 standard rotation. This decision is final. There will be no negotiation. For 3 full seconds, there was silence. Then the hall exploded. 1,000 voices screamed in 1,000 languages. Platforms surged forward as representatives demanded explanations. The Vet Commander Threll slammed his 4 fists against his console, cracking it. High Arbiter Velos flickered through the entire color spectrum, a sign of extreme distress. Somewhere, a species that communicated through scent released a cloud of pure panic. Yoon-hana stood perfectly still. She had known this was coming. She had helped write the speech, but hearing it spoken aloud in this place made it real in a way she had not expected. This is madness. Commander Threll roared, "Your engineers maintain our fleet. Without them, we are defenseless. Your doctors run our hospitals." Another voice cried, "Millions will die. Your diplomats keep the peace between us. You cannot simply leave." Park Do-won waited. He let them scream. He let them beg. He let them threaten. And when they finally fell silent, exhausted and afraid, he spoke again. 6 months ago, he said, an asteroid struck our colony world of New Busan. 12 billion humans faced extinction. We came to this council. We begged for help, ships, resources, anything. He paused. You voted. 847 to 1. Against intervention, you called it an internal species matter. The silence returned. This time, it was heavy with shame. We saved ourselves, Park Do-won continued. We lost 4 billion people, but we survived. And in those dark months, as our children burned and our cities fell, we had time to think. We thought about the 800 years we spent serving this confederation. We thought about the wars we ended for you, the diseases we cured for you, the technologies we built for you, and we thought about how when we needed you, when we asked for help just once, You said no. High Arbiter Velos moved forward. Ambassador, please. The vote was a mistake. We can revisit it. We can make amends. No, Park Dewan said. You cannot. 4 billion of our people are dead. Their names are written in our hearts. Their children will never be born. Their songs will never be sung. You cannot give that back. No one can. Then what do you want? Velos asked. Punishment? Revenge? Name your price. Park Dewan smiled. It was the saddest smile Yunhana had ever seen. We want nothing, he said. That is what you do not understand. We are not angry. We are not seeking revenge. We are simply ... tired. We are tired of being needed. We are tired of being used. We are tired of giving everything and receiving nothing. So we will go somewhere quiet, somewhere we are not needed, and we will leave you to what you have built without us. He turned to leave. Yunhana followed. Behind them, the council erupted again, but this time, the screams were different. They were the screams of people who had just realized that the ground beneath their feet had always been borrowed. At the door of the Great Hall, Park Dewan stopped. He turned back one last time. We wish you well, he said. Truly, we hope you find your way without us, but we will not return. Please do not ask. Then he walked out. Yunhana walked beside him. The doors closed behind them with a sound like the ending of an age in the hall. High Arbiter Velos stared at the empty platform where the humans had stood. He thought about all the times he had seen humans smile, work, sacrifice, and give. He thought about how easy it had been to let them. He thought about the vote 6 months ago when he had abstained instead of fighting for them. He had not said no, but he had not said yes either. And now, as the galaxy began to crumble around him, he understood that silence was just another kind of betrayal. The humans were gone, and they had taken the future with them. 1 year had passed since the humans walked away, and the galaxy was starting to bleed. Beak Jisoo sat alone in a small room on Station Kepler 7, eating cold rice from a metal container. The station floated at the edge of what used to be called the Central Trade Corridor. Now, it was just empty space filled with broken ships and unanswered distress calls. She was one of the last humans in this sector. She had stayed behind to finish dismantling the power core she had helped build 20 years ago. It was not safe to leave it running without proper maintenance. The aliens did not know how to maintain it. They had never learned. Her console beeped. Another message. She already knew what it would say. Engineer Beak. This is Commander Threll of the Vec Imperial Fleet. I am requesting your assistance. Our flagship's engine has failed. Our technicians cannot repair it. We are drifting toward hostile space. Please respond. Jisoo took another bite of rice. The message had come from a ship called the Fury of Vec. She remembered it. She had helped design its engine core 30 years ago when she was young and believed in the Confederation. The engine was beautiful. It used principles that no other species had ever understood. She had tried to teach them once. They had told her not to bother. They said humans would always be there to fix things. She deleted the message. Her brother. Jun Sung had been on New Busan. He was a teacher. He taught children how to read. When the asteroid came, he had gathered his students and led them to a shelter. The shelter was designed for 50 people. 300 had crowded inside. Jun Sung had given his place to a child and waited outside. He was one of the 4 billion Commander Threll had voted against helping New Busan. Jisoo had checked the records. She checked all the records now. She knew exactly who had said no and who had stayed silent. She finished her rice and began packing her things. Her transport would arrive in 6 hours. She would be the last human to leave this sector. Behind her, the station would continue operating for maybe 2 more months. Then the power core would fail. Then everything connected to it would go dark. 18 worlds depended on this station for power. 18 worlds that had voted no. Jisoo did not feel guilt. She did not feel satisfaction either. She just felt tired. Far across the galaxy, on a green world called Tessera Prime, Sung Murray was facing a different kind of ending. She was a doctor. She had spent 40 years healing species that were not her own. She had cured plagues, mended broken bodies, and held the hands of dying beings who did not even have hands. She was good at her job. She loved her job. And now her job was killing her slowly because she could not save everyone. And everyone needed saving. The plague had started 3 months ago. It was an old disease, something humans had cured 2 centuries back. The cure existed in databases across the galaxy. Any medical AI could produce it. But the plague had mutated, as plagues do, and the AI could not adapt. It followed the old formula exactly. The old formula did not work on the new strain. Murray had solved the problem in a week. She adjusted the cure, tested it, and began treatment. She saved 6 million lives in the first month alone. But she was one human, and Tessara Prime had 2 billion sick. Please, the local governor begged her. He was a being made of flowing silver liquid, beautiful and strange. Stay. We will give you anything. Name your price. Planet. A star system. Anything. Murray looked at him. She thought about the vote. Tessara Prime had voted no. The governor himself had given a speech about how humans needed to handle their own problems. I have trained your doctors, she said. I have given them the new formula. I have shown them how to adapt it when the plague changes again. They cannot do what you do, the governor said. They do not think like you. They follow rules. You create new rules when the old ones fail. We do not know how to do that. Then learn, Murray said. You had 800 years to learn. You chose not to. That is not my fault. She packed her medical kit. It was small, worn, and stained with the blood of 100 species. She had carried it across the galaxy. Now she would carry it home. How many will die? The governor asked. His voice was barely a whisper. Murray paused at the door. She wanted to lie. She wanted to give him hope. But she was too tired for lies. Without human doctors? Probably half your population. Maybe more if the plague keeps mutating. She looked back at him. I am sorry. I truly am. But we asked for help once. You said no. Now we are saying no. That is how the universe works. Actions have consequences. Even silence is an action. She left. Behind her, the governor collapsed into a shapeless puddle. The form his species took when they lost all hope. Across the galaxy, the first shots of a new war were being fired. The Vec Empire and the Hollow Reach Syndicate had been rivals for centuries. Humans had kept the peace between them, negotiating treaties, managing disputes, distributing resources fairly. Now there were no humans. There were no treaties. There was only hunger and fear and ancient hatred. The war would kill billions. It would destroy worlds. It would create wounds that would take centuries to heal, if they ever healed at all. On a small ship heading toward human space, Beak Jisoo watched the news feeds. She saw the fury of Vec burning in space, its crew dead, its engines cold. She saw Tessara Prime's hospitals overflowing with the dying. She saw the first Vec warships crossing into Syndicate territory, weapons hot. She felt something twist in her chest. Maybe it was grief. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was just the knowledge that this was only the beginning. Her console beeped. A message from human space. It was simple, just 3 words. Welcome home, Jisoo. She closed her eyes and let the tears come. She cried for her brother. She cried for the galaxy. She cried for the humans who had given everything and received nothing in return. And when the tears stopped, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. Peace. The galaxy was burning. But for the first time in her life, Beak Jisoo was not responsible for putting out the flames. She could rest. She could heal. She could be human again. Behind her, the stars grew dim. The great networks were failing. The lights were going out, one by one, across the galaxy. And in the darkness, the screaming had only just begun. 5 years after the humans left, Quan Taeyeon sat in a small room and listened to a dying species say goodbye. He was a historian. His job was to record what happened, to preserve the truth for future generations. He had recorded many things since the withdrawal: trade collapses, wars, famines, plagues, the slow death of civilizations that had stood for 10,000 years. But this was different. This was personal. Oracle Sen appeared on his screen as a shimmer of pale light. The Whisper species had no solid bodies. They were beings of pure energy, ancient and wise. They had kept the records of galactic history for longer than most species had existed. They were librarians of the universe. And now, there was only one of them left. "Thank you for speaking with me," Tyon said. His voice was soft, respectful. He knew he was witnessing the end of something precious. "Thank you for listening," Sen replied. His voice was like wind through leaves, beautiful and sad. No one else wanted to hear. They are too busy dying themselves. "Tell me what happened," Sen flickered. It was the Whisper way of sighing. We were archivists, collectors. We had no weapons, no armies, no way to defend ourselves. For 3,000 years, the Krell protected us. They were warriors, fierce and proud, but also honorable. They believed in duty. In exchange for our knowledge, they gave us their shields. What changed? The humans left. Sen's light dimmed. The Krell had a dispute with their neighbors, the Torch Collective. It was an old dispute, something about mining rights in a dead system. For centuries, human diplomats had managed it. Small compromises, careful words. The anger never grew to large. But when the humans left, there was no one to manage it anymore. The anger grew. It became hate. And hate became war. Taeyeon nodded. He had heard variations of this story 100 times. The galaxy had been held together by human hands, and no one had noticed until those hands let go. The Krell needed resources for their war, Sen continued. They looked at us. We had valuable things. Knowledge, technology, ancient artifacts. They asked us to give these things to them. We refused. Knowledge should be free, not a weapon. He paused. They did not take the refusal well. I am sorry. Why? Your species did not kill us. The Krell did, so we left you unprotected. Because we knew what might happen, and we left anyway. Sen's light brightened slightly. It was the Whisper way of smiling, as very human of you. Taking responsibility for things that are not your fault. He flickered again. But you are wrong. The fault is ours. All of ours. We built a galaxy that depended on humans for everything. We never asked if they were tired. We never offered to help them. We just took and took and took. When they needed us, we turned away. This is not your consequence. It is ours. The screen flickered. Sen's form was becoming unstable. He was dying, his energy finally fading after millennia of existence. I want to ask you something, Sen said. Will you record it? Will you make sure the galaxy remembers what we did wrong? I will. We called you the servant species. Did you know that? Behind your backs, in our private councils, that is what we called you. We thought you needed us. We thought you were simple, kind, useful creatures who existed to make our lives easier. We were wrong. We needed you, and we never once said thank you. The screen went dark. Oracle Sen was gone. The last Whisper had spoken his final words, and they were words of shame. Taeyeon sat in silence for a long time. Then he began to write. Far from the historian's quiet room, on a green world at the edge of human space, No Yoonji was planting seeds. She was 43 years old. Her hands were rough from work, her face tanned by the sun. She had been a soldier once, a peacekeeper serving on alien worlds. She had fought and bled and watched friends die for species that were not her own. Now, she grew vegetables. It was better. Her farm was small, but productive. She had neighbors, other humans who had chosen simple lives after the withdrawal. They helped each other. They shared meals. They did not talk about the past. Sometimes at night, Youngji would look up at the stars. She knew what was happening out there. The news still came, even if most people did not watch it. The Confederation had collapsed. The great shipyards had fallen silent. 1,000 wars raged across 1,000 worlds. Species that had existed for millions of years were going extinct. The galaxy was dying. She felt nothing. That scared her sometimes. She had spent 20 years caring about the galaxy. She had believed in the mission. Humans were helpers, builders, healers. It was their purpose. It was their pride. Then New Busan happened. She had been stationed on a Vec world when the asteroid hit. She had watched the news with her squad, seen the destruction, heard the screams. She had requested emergency leave to go help. Her request was denied. The Vec commander said she was needed where she was. There was a trade dispute that required human mediation. A trade dispute. While her people burned, she had stayed. She had done her duty. And when the vote came, when the galaxy said no, she had watched the Vec commander celebrate. He had been glad. He said it meant humans would stay focused on their real work. Yoonji had resigned the next day. She had not spoken to an alien since. Now she planted seeds and watched them grow. She ate food she had grown with her own hands. She slept in a house she had built herself. And when she looked at the stars, she felt nothing but peace. Her neighbor, an old man named Huang Xiaoxin, walked over one evening. He brought homemade wine in 2 cups. They sent another delegation, he said. 12 species, begging at the border. What did we say? Same thing we always say. We wish you well. Please do not return. Yoonji drank her wine. It was sweet and strong. Do you think we are cruel? She asked. Seok Jin thought about it. He had been a doctor before the withdrawal. He had saved millions of alien lives. No, he said finally. I think we are tired. There is a difference. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was screaming. But here, on this small farm, there was only the sound of wind in the trees and the smell of growing things. Yoonji finished her wine and smiled. I think I will plant apple trees tomorrow, she said. I have always wanted an orchard.
8.
Seokchi nodded. I will help you. And so they planned their orchard while empires crumbled and stars went dark. They were not heartless. They were not vengeful. They were simply, finally, at peace. The galaxy had never given them that gift, so they had taken it for themselves. 20 years after the withdrawal, the message came on every frequency, in every language. Echoing across the cold space between stars, we were wrong. Please come back. We are dying. Soo-jin listened to it in her office, a simple room with white walls and a window that looked out over green hills. She was the president of the Human Federation, elected 3 years ago, on a platform of continued isolation. She was 41 years old, born 2 years after the withdrawal. She had never met an alien. She had never wanted to, but now the aliens were begging. She had to decide what to do. The message came from something called the Remnant Council. It was what was left of the old Galactic Confederation. 2,000 species had once filled its halls. Now only 43 remained. The others were gone, extinct, erased from the universe by war, plague, famine, or simple despair. Soo-jin read the reports. She had been reading them for weeks. The great shipyards were silent. The alloys needed to build starships had run out centuries ago, and no one knew how to make more. Humans had invented the process. Humans had built the forges. Humans had never written it down because they never imagined it would not be there to do it. The communication networks were failing. The quantum relays that connected worlds were breaking down one by one. Soon, planets would be isolated, alone in the darkness, unable to call for help. The wars had stopped, but only because there was nothing left to fight over. The Vec Empire was gone, shattered into 100 squabbling fragments. The Hollow Reach Syndicate had collapsed from within. The great powers that had once ruled the galaxy were dust and memory, and now the survivors were begging, please come back. We are dying, Soo-jin called a meeting of the Human Parliament. The debate lasted 3 days. A young representative from New Busan shouted, 4 billion of our people died while they watched, and now they want our help? Let them rot. We are not them, an older woman replied. We are better than them. If we turn away now, we become the monsters we accuse them of being. Being better does not mean being stupid. If we go back, they will use us again. They will drain us dry and throw us away when they are done. Then we do not go back. We help from a distance. We teach them to save themselves. The arguments went back and forth. Sujin listened to all of them. She understood both sides. The anger was justified. The caution was wise. But neither anger nor caution was the same as an answer. On the third day, an old man asked to speak. His name was Chai Dongwu. He was 34 years old, but his eyes looked ancient. He had been a child on New Busan when the asteroid came. He had survived. Most of his family had not. The parliament fell silent as he walked to the podium. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone knew his story. I do not forgive them, Dongwu said. His voice was quiet but steady. I will never forgive them. I remember the fire. I remember the screaming. I remember my mother's hands slipping from mine as the evacuation ship lifted off. I watched her die on a screen. I was 8 years old. I paused. The silence was absolute. But I have been thinking about something. The beings who voted against us are mostly dead now. Their governments have fallen. Their worlds have burned. The ones who are left, the ones who are begging us now, they are children, grandchildren, beings who were not even born when the vote happened. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every representative. When I was a child, my mother told me that humans were special because we could choose to be kind even when kindness was not deserved. She said that was our gift to the universe. Our purpose. His voice cracked slightly. She died believing that. She gave her seat on the evacuation ship to a stranger's child and died believing that kindness mattered more than survival. Ow. Tears ran down his cheeks. But he did not wipe them away. I do not want to forgive the galaxy. But I think my mother would want me to try. Not for them. For us. For the kind of species we want to be. The children out there did not vote against us. The children are innocent. Are we really going to let innocents die to punish the guilty who are already dead? He stepped away from the podium and returned to his seat. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, President Im Soo-jin stood. We will vote, she said. The vote was close. Heartbreakingly close. But in the end, it passed by 7 votes. Humanity would help. Not return. Not reconcile. Just help. 1 week later, a single human medical ship crossed the border into what used to be Confederation space. It was small, unarmed, and carried a crew of 12 volunteers. The captain was a young woman named Oh Yuna. She had never seen an alien before. When she arrived at the first dying world, she found a population of 3 billion slowly starving. Their farms had failed. Their technology had broken down. They did not know how to fix anything because they had never needed to learn. Yuna did not judge them. She did not lecture them. She simply began to teach. This is how you purify water, she said. This is how you grow food in poor soil. This is how you build a generator from scrap metal. Watch carefully. I will only show you once. More ships followed. Dozens, then hundreds. They spread across the dying galaxy like seeds in fertile soil, teaching, healing, building. But they did not stay. They came, they helped, and they left. They were clear about their purpose. We are not your servants anymore, President Soo-jin said in her address to the galaxy. We will never be your servants again. But we are not cruel. We will teach you to save yourselves. What you do with that teaching is your choice. We will not make it for you. The Remnant Council received the message in their ruined chamber. A small room in a crumbling building that had once been a palace. High Arbiter Velos 7, a young crystalline being grown from the fragments of the original Velos. Listened to every word. When the message ended, he did not feel grateful. He felt ashamed. No, they are better than us, he said to the empty room. They have always been better than us. And we treated them like tools, he sent a reply. It was simple. Just 2 words. Thank you. No response came. But in the darkness of dying space, human ships continued their work, quiet and steady, asking for nothing in return. It was not forgiveness. It was not reconciliation. It was something harder, something more human. It was mercy. 100 years after the humans walked away, Yunhana stood at the edge of a crowd and watched history being made. She was 142 years old. Human medicine had advanced far in the century of isolation, and she was still strong, still sharp, still haunted by memories that would not fade. She had been there at the beginning, standing beside Ambassador Park Dewan when he spoke those fateful words. She was the last living witness to the day the galaxy changed forever. Now, she had been invited back to the place where it all began. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had been rebuilt. It was smaller now, humbler. Only 300 species remained in the galaxy, and most of them were still recovering from the collapse. But they had built something new from the ashes. They called it the Reformed Council. And today, they were dedicating a memorial. The memorial was a simple wall of black stone. On it, carved in letters of gold, were names. 1,847 names. The species that had gone extinct during the collapse. The ones who would never return. Below the names, a single phrase was written in every known language. They asked for help. We said no. Hannah read the words and felt tears sting her eyes. She had seen so much death, so much destruction. She had watched civilizations crumble and species vanish forever. She had carried that weight for a century. And now, finally, someone was admitting the truth. A young human woman approached her. Her name was Kong Jie, and she was a xenanthropologist, a scientist who studied alien cultures. She had spent 10 years researching the collapse, trying to understand what had happened and why. Ambassador Yun, Jie said softly, "They are asking if you would speak." Hannah looked at the crowd. She saw beings of every shape and size, survivors of the apocalypse, children of the children who had voted against humanity. They looked at her with something she had not expected, not fear, not resentment. Hope. "I do not know what to say," she admitted. "Tell them the truth," Jie said. "That is all anyone can ask." Hannah walked to the podium. The hall fell silent. 100 years ago, she had stood in this same place and watched her mentor end an era. Now she would try to begin a new one. "I was 29 years old when we left," she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. "I stood beside Ambassador Park Dewan and watched him speak the words that changed everything. I was angry then. I wanted the galaxy to suffer. I thought they deserved it." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I was wrong. Not about the anger. The anger was justified. But suffering does not teach. It only destroys. We learned that lesson watching you burn. We learned it in the faces of children who died because their parents made bad choices. We learned it in the silence of species that will never speak again." She looked at the memorial wall, at the names carved in gold. "My mentor, Ambassador Park Dewan, did not leave in anger. He left in sorrow. He told me once they will not learn while we carry them. Some lessons must be suffered. He was right. I wish he had been wrong." She turned back to the crowd. "You have learned. I have seen the reports. You help each other now. You share knowledge freely. You do not wait to be asked. You have become what we always hoped you could be. Not because we forced you, because you chose it. That is the only kind of change that lasts." She stepped away from the podium. The applause was thunderous, but she barely heard it. She was thinking about Park Dewan, dead now for 60 years, and wondering if he would be proud. 3 months later, the Reformed Council made a formal proposal. They invited humanity to rejoin the galactic community as equal partners. The invitation came with guarantees. A permanent seat on the council, veto power over any decision, a formal apology written into the founding documents of the new government. The galaxy was asking humanity to come home. The human parliament debated for 6 months. It was not a difficult decision because of anger. The anger had faded long ago. It was difficult because of fear. What if it happened again? What if they trusted the galaxy, and the galaxy betrayed them again? In the end, a young diplomat named Shin Yejin was chosen to deliver humanity's response. She was 28 years old, the great-great-granddaughter of a New Busan survivor. She had her ancestors' eyes, dark and deep and full of memory. She stood before the Reformed Council and spoke clearly. "We accept," she said, "but we will never forget. And neither should you." She paused, letting the words settle. The galaxy works when we work together. It falls when we fail each other. Let this be the last time we learn that lesson. We will stand with you. We will help you. We will be your partners. But we will not be your servants. And if you ever forget our worth again, if you ever take us for granted again, we will walk away. And next time, we will not come back. The council agreed. The terms were written. Humanity rejoined the galaxy, not as helpers or servants, but as equals, partners, friends. 2 years later, Kong Juye visited the old human border station. It had been turned into a museum, a monument to the century of isolation. The halls were quiet, filled with artifacts from an era of pain and healing. In the main control room, a single console still functioned. On it, a message played on loop. The same message that had greeted every alien ship that approached human space for 100 years. "We wish you well. Please do not return." GA stood before the console for a long time. She thought about everything that had happened. The withdrawal, the collapse, the slow, painful rebuilding, the mercy that humanity had offered even when it was not deserved. The forgiveness that had come not from forgetting, but from choosing to be better. She reached out and pressed a button. The message stopped. The console went dark. The silence was not empty. It was full of possibility. Outside, through a window, she could see the stars. They were brighter now, or maybe they had always been this bright, and she was just now learning to see them properly. Ships moved between them, human and alien together, carrying goods and people and hope. The galaxy had nearly died, but it had not. It had learned. It had changed. And now, finally, it was ready to grow. GA smiled and turned away from the console. Behind her, the old border station began its slow transformation from monument to memory. The past was the past. The future was waiting, and this time they would face it together.